For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Good evening. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL Montreal's Josh Miller. Good evening, Josh. We're back.
Hello, Dan. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while. We don't usually take a whole month off in the middle of the fall, but we had the election.
We did. We had a little bit of a break, elections
Jewish
and holidays,
secular holidays, and anyway, so here we are, and we're back next week as well, so we're going to fall into that regular schedule, Monday nights at 7 here on CJAD. And on the program, we're going to talk about snacking with Lezlie and Nick from snack bar company MidDay Squares.
Absolutely. It's a company that started a little over a year ago. The concept was even before then. And they saw a void in the market. And Dan, they brought some samples. We always like samples.
Excellent.
We're going to munch on that during the program and hear about their great stories. Some great young entrepreneurs with a ton of life and energy.
Micheline Mayette, also our HR specialist, will be on later in the program to talk about small businesses and how to compensate employees with the rules and etiquette there. So stay tuned for that. But first, as usual, news and notes and my advice request from Josh, because I like doing that. I like taking advantage of your expertise here. And
take advantage of me, Dan, as much as you want. It's been a month, so you know.
It's been a while. So one thing that I wanted to bring up was workflow software or organizational software. I can't say the number of times over the years where I've had either contributors to the company or clients really try to rope me in to sign up for Asana or Slack or Trello or one of these myriad organizational softwares that are supposed to keep you more organized. I want your take on this, Josh, because I tend to resist this, and sometimes I actually have to say to my clients, can you please not loop me in on any of these software programs, because it tends to generate more email and more work for me as far as I'm concerned. And I wonder if it's not just, these things are just not another app that makes you kind of stay on the app for as long as possible.
They're more than an instant messaging system, and I think you're on the right track. I think if you use one, maybe two, if you absolutely have to, you can stay organized, because you can use Slack. You know, I'm probably on Slack more than any of the others mentioned. I tried Trello once, didn't really stick, but you have to use it more. You have to have a lot of people on it and a lot of uses for it, so you get comfortable with it. So I tend to use Slack more than anything else. And truly, it's great when you're coming to organize an event, or you're trying to have a bunch of people around that you're in different locations, and it definitely speeds up communication, and you can do a lot of things with it. That being said, it does take up time, and you do still have to be organized. That software in and of itself is not going to organize you. It will help keep all the discussions in one place. It will help keep all the threads and ideas within that group in one place. But if you're not organized to begin with, and you have all your files and everything everywhere, this won't necessarily help you. But certainly, there's no question, if you use 3 or 4 or 5 of them at once, that for sure won't help you. So I like them. I think they can definitely help. I think it's faster than email, than copying everybody and bloating up your email box. Dan, I'm sure like me, your email boxes can just absolutely grow unreasonably. So this definitely helps. But if you can. It's tough when you're in a service business. You have a lot of clients, but if you can guide them all to one, that's definitely a better way to go, I think.
Your marketing pro at FL, Marjorie Valsin, gave us a good tip on this as well in an email earlier today. She said, if you're not going to use it obsessively or like really diligently, don't use it at all, because they're meant to be used in a really diligent way. So if you know you're going to only stick with it once in a while, don't bother. It's
like any software, any application. If you're only going to use it once in a while, you're not going to get comfortable enough. You're not going to be efficient using it.
Yeah. And again, the paranoid part of me is thinking, well, these apps really, they judge their success on a technical level by how much time we spend on them. So are they really interested in saving me time? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but that is the goal. That is the goal, and if it's used properly amongst the group, it could save definitely some time.
All right, some news and notes. Let's start with this article from Inc.com. 5 questions that most people, interesting people, will ask in conversations.
And this article, I mean, it talks about a lot of different things, but for me, what really stood out is not everybody has the ability to do small talk. Dan, we all email, we all try and get out, and you yourself in your business, myself in my business, we get out there, we have to go to cocktails, or we end up at our foul up events every now and then, which is coming up again. And like, what do you talk about? There's only so many times you want to say, well, talk about the weather and talk about everything. So I think it's really some questions that you can ask that you can put in your repertoire that are a little bit more interesting. Now, you have to be ready to answer them yourself if it's thrown back to you. But still, like, if you just, and they're open-ended, the yes/no questions, try to avoid those. But something like what's your story, or where do you come from? That's something that leaves people a little bit open to ask you something. Like, I mean, you do have to be a little bit more comfortable because some of these questions are a little bit out there, so you might not start with that. But certainly the interesting questions, what makes you smile when you wake up in the morning or throughout the day?
They sound like pickup lines, Josh.
Well, Dan, isn't that how we first met?
Pretty much.
But it's really, it does. Let's just say it'll lead to more interesting conversations than, I got to go change my snow tires before December 1st because of this crazy weather. And if you really want to be a little bit more memorable, then start asking some of those questions. And I would say don't drag it on, and show a little bit of your emotions. Be aware of your body language. I mean, the topic itself, we can talk a long time, but I would just add one thing. Listen more than you talk. Be a giver, not a taker.
This is also an interesting article from Inc.com about sort of approaching your company culture as something that you have to brand, like a product.
And it's really about, we keep talking about the talent wars. If you think about your culture as a product, because people constantly improve their product. We're talking about MidDay Squares today. We'll listen to how many iterations and versions and improvements they try to make on their product before you get it out there. If you actually took the time to treat your culture and get that out there and be a little bit more unique and answer maybe some voids in the marketplace, think about the talent that you could attract in such a difficult marketplace. So that's where the concept of treating your culture like a product, if you spend as much time on your work environment as you do on what you're selling, you can definitely attract some phenomenal people.
Now, a few years ago, we used to talk about all these business articles about millennials, how to understand millennials and all of that as an emerging consumer group. Well, now we have to start stereotyping Generation Z. And here's another one from Inc.com. 3 simple tips leaders need to know to keep them from leaving. So how do we hook in Gen Zers?
Well, we all know, so Gen Z, just so everybody is aware, it's from, I think, 96 to 2010 they were born. Although it's, that's the specific dates, but I'm sure there's a little bit of looseness on each end. And they want to be involved. They grew up in a technology world. They grew up in an information age. Their minds race. They maybe were a little coddled or not. They need to feel included. So what do you do as an employer? Check in regularly. Don't ignore them. Make them feel that they're part of the team. Discuss, and it's a little fluffy. I get it. Their emotional well-being. How's it going? How was your day? I can't say I love that part, but I understand if know your audience, right? And of course, no question, they grew up with technology. Invest in those tech tools that have a really good user experience. They're going to appreciate working in that company.
Finally, real quick, from entrepreneur.com, how to be funny in the workplace. Are you sure we're still allowed?
That's a tough one, Dan. And because humor, not everybody's good at humor. Not everybody can deliver a joke very well. Not everybody knows the circumstances and knows their audience. Getting into a group of guys and discussing flatulence is not necessarily funny to everybody. Know your audience. Be a little bit, use it with purpose. And what's actually important is if you're going to use it in the workplace and you're not a credible employee, if you don't know that people work hard and you have great knowledge, using humor to deflect might not work so well for you because they might just think you're slacking again.
Also, everything you say can be tweeted, so do keep that in mind.
Everything you say can absolutely be tweeted.
All right, we're going to talk to the folks behind MidDay Squares, Lezlie, Karls, and Nick Saltarelli coming up next. We'll talk HR as well later in the program, compensation for employees of small businesses and how to navigate that. But first, snacking with Lezlie and Nick. That's next.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back. Inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL Montreal's Josh Miller with you. And this evening, we welcome to the studio Lezlie, Karls, and Nick Saltarelli of a snack bar company, MidDay Squares. Welcome to CJD, guys.
What's doing, guys?
Thank you. What's going on?
I've actually been excited to do this.
You know what, Nick, I've heard you've been super pumped. You email me super pumped. So we're really looking forward to this.
I am pumped. I'm not
always
gonna lie.
pumped.
I'm always pumped.
It's all those chocolate bars.
I was going to say it's a chocolate high. No. It's a natural high. We're gonna
Yeah,
say.
it is absolutely.
So again, thanks for being with us, Nick and Lezlie.
Pleasure.
And first question, the easiest question, this is a lob ball or a slow pitch. We're still in the World Series, right? Except it's not underhand. What is MidDay Squares?
I'm gonna take that one.
Go ahead.
Honestly, super simple. We thought about it long and hard, and we really always said, what would it be like if Hershey started a chocolate company today? And if Hershey started a chocolate company today, it wouldn't look like Hershey's. And that's really what MidDay Squares is how do we take chocolate, make it functional, use super clean ingredients, give you a little bit of protein and a little bit of fiber? And that's really the ethos of MidDay Squares, is making just amazing chocolate products that are healthy for you.
Now, what were you doing before? Were you in the food business?
I wasn't. I was actually a software engineer prior to this. I was working in the industry for almost 7 years, and Les was in fashion. She was a fashion designer in New York City.
So the natural route is to get into a chocolate company. So where does the thought come? Where was the aha moment?
Les, that's
So-
you. She's the queen behind it.
Well, pretty much Nick and I, before we got married, we lived with each other as roommates, actually best friends. And he used to eat all this crap in the afternoon. And I love food. I'm a huge foodie. I'm always in the kitchen. And I just said, let me just make you something a little more healthier. It's not less sugar, but it's going to taste better. And he's like, do it. So I created him a version of the MidDay Square.
A year before MidDay Squares even came out. We didn't even know
Yeah.
that was going to be the thing. And then I think as it was starting to get traction with people, like we were making people taste it. After I had the good fortune of selling the company that I was with, and I had a 2-year non-compete. And basically, I was looking for my next gig, and I saw something there, and I asked her one morning while we were eating eggs. I'm like, I think we should do this full time. Like,
But the thought came in the shower.
yeah, I thought I came in the shower.
And we won't go there.
Yeah, no, but I do my best thing in the shower, for the record.
Facts.
Now you have this product that you're making. You did it at home, but you have to perfect it for the market. How many recipes do you go through before you actually find the right ones?
So when we decided to launch a product, obviously there's, a product that you eat at home and there's a product that you need to present commercially. So we did about, I would say 70
I think
trials.
it was 78.
Yeah,
roughly.
78 trials prior to launching the bar to the market. But I remember on the last trial, we were in our apartment and Nick was on the computer and I was making a batch. And
You
put it
looked
in my
over
mouth.
me. I remember perfectly.
I looked at him and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, why? I'm like, get over here. Gets over. I'm like, this is it. And he eats it. We put it in our mouth and like, it's
It was
go
the
time.
one.
It was
I
the
mean,
one.
this is the fudge that you guys know today.
Exactly.
I mean, that is the one.
So during that process, what were you guys looking for that was not out there already from your competitors?
Yeah. So I think, honestly, the chocolate space was a weird space because everybody that was doing like the vegan protein bars or was in that space was really focused on bars that didn't use chocolate as the primary ingredient. And they were using not real chocolate. So what that means is usually super high sugar base and a chocolate that has below 50% of actual chocolate mass, like cocoa and cocoa butter. And then everybody that was in the chocolate bar space doing these like interesting chocolate products were not using function at all. So they had no protein component, no fiber, no nothing. And the aha moment really was when I was looking at a study that my cousin had given to me because he's in the M&A space for food. It was super obvious. Real chocolate was growing at 42% year over year, and it was a super mature market. And the vegan protein bar not the protein bar market, was growing at 36% year over year, super mature market, and nobody had created a baby of the two categories. That was what happened in the shower. That was my aha moment.
Now you're building this brand. Do you do focus groups? Like, did you test it out, or you just really went to market?
So,
no. We did focus
Well,
groups,
we
but
did-
not like traditional focus.
Yeah, exactly. We did a lot with family and friends, obviously, but at the same time, we
McGill.
also worked with McGill, exactly, and we worked with some of their food scientists, and we held groups in McGill in their program.
30
and,
people
Yeah,
they
up to
would
30
invite,
people
yeah.
at a time, and it was incredible. We had really good feedback.
So would you say this was part of your marketing research and marketing efforts?
Yes. What I will say, which is super underrated, and I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs. I've been on both sides of it, being an advisor and being an entrepreneur many times. I've swung and missed, trust me, a lot of times. A lot of time, you just have to go with what really works for you. And I think what Les and I set out from the beginning was to create a product that spoke to us, both from a brand perspective and also just satisfied our taste buds. We knew we'd find more people like us out there. That was kind of it.
So what did you do for marketing, though? How did you get the name out there?
Well,
He's not here.
Other
yeah,
than
exactly.
feed people.
The rover's not here.
Shout out Jake,
Shout out
the
Jake.
rover.
That's our third partner.
Tell him a little bit about that experience and all.
Yeah. So Jake has this thing about him. He's able to attract people. He's able to just get things out there. I mean, it's
Long story short, we saw Jake for 2 years build a clothing brand from nothing. He doesn't necessarily have the operational sense, and it's fine because we've spoken about this a lot of times. But man, does this guy know how to make people want to engage with a brand. And we saw it from afar happen.
So what
for
does
2
he do
years.
to do that?
He goes, man. He goes to
just
university.
himself, yeah.
He gets in your face?
He gets it. He's out there. Number
Guerrilla
one,
marketing.
Jake taught me that you should. It's funny. I'm not wearing it, but we usually are always wearing our brand. That's something Jake taught us. You just wear your brand at all times. When I'm on airplanes or I'm at clubs or anything, or I always have a bar on me. And you got to build that network. And Jake taught us that the number one way to build a community is to continue building a network. And it took us 3 months to convince him. He actually didn't want to join the company. But we convinced Jake to come be that third founder because we know her and I knew that we couldn't do this on our own. That's not our forte.
You mentioned rover, that Jake is a rover. What does that mean, and how has it helped you guys?
Yeah, so if you actually look at the definition of rover on Google, it's like he who wanders the field with no specific position. And that really is Jake.
Nobody wanted to work with him. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, at all. Everybody wants to work with
No.
Jake.
He's been fired from every area within our company, and we love him, but he is the rover, right?
I think founders have this misconception that you need to be a manager or you need to enter into an executive management role to found a company, and that's just false. And Jake has no management role at the company. Nobody reports to him. His sole objective is to be out there building a network for MidDay Squares, and he does an incredible job at doing so. That's what a rover is.
And getting into different aspects of business and questioning it.
Yeah.
And Jake, and like Jake gets on an Air Canada flight and he hands out bars. Jake, that's just Jake, right?
Here's the facts. Nobody knows the customer more than Jake, and nobody knows the retailer.
Yeah, facts.
I want to meet this Jake. All right. Thanks, guys. Lezlie Karls and Nick Saltarelli from MidDay Squares. More with them on the marketing plan, on the HR side in a little bit. Plus, we'll talk with Micheline Mayette on HR and compensation for employees of small businesses. That's all on the way on today's Entrepreneur.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, presented by FL Montreal, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. Dan Delmar and FL Montreal's Josh Miller with you. And this evening, we're chatting with Lezlie Karls and Nick Saltarelli of snack bar company MidDay Squares. And Josh, they're both very young, been doing it for a couple of years now. They both made career changes already. And this product is taken off. So how do you...
Absolutely.
And so the question is, like, how do you organize yourselves in a way that is sustainable when you're so new and young? First, real quick, guys, remind us your roles, because you're three partners, but you sort of float around a little bit. What are your jobs?
Nick, do you want to start by saying what you do at the company?
Yeah, I mean, I operate. I hate saying it at this stage, but I'm the chief operation officer. But I really try to operate the business, keep it moving forward, keep us hitting our goals. Really, everything from product in to product out the door kind of falls under mine. Les has been our incredible leader. I mean, she's great at managing, and I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, I manage production, manufacturing, R&D, and I'm really focusing these days on building out our new plant and building out all the automation.
I mean, and a lot of the creative direction comes from you.
Yes, well, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Jake.
And then Jake the rover.
Jake the rover.
Jake the rover. We really work on dividing and conquering. That's really important, to trust in each other and do these tasks.
But there's definitely some overlap, and you guys, you still have your meetings every now and then instead of flying, right? There is
100%.
Yeah. So let's talk about manufacturing. I mean, this is a food product. There's regulations to follow. There's certainly quality assurance. There's so many things that go into it. What are maybe some of the things or lessons that you've learned, Lezlie, in manufacturing this great product that I'm trying not to chew while I talk to Anne? So it's very good.
So manufacturing is very tricky. It has been a wild journey. QA is one of the most important things about manufacturing. Quality assurance. You need to make sure that at the end of the day, you're shipping your customers safe product. And
have you had to put it in special machinery?
So you do need to have it go through either a metal detector or x-rays, but you need to also have critical point control. We have a QA tech in-house, and we also have a senior QA that we work with. And you just, every single morning at 6:30 a.m., she has to come in, she has to do her full check. She checks the whole facility, goes through everything, checks all the appliances.
I think just know that if you're buying your food in a grocery store, you're getting very safe product. I mean, the regulations are super intense. Everything has to be documented every single
Tons
day.
Tons of programs.
Have you been inspected?
Traceability.
Yes, three times.
Yes.
Surprise.
Yes. So
have you found any craziness? I mean, it never entered your product, but.
Well, we did. We had a situation where we found a rock in some of the raw materials. And so we actually called the supplier right away. We spoke with their QA. They picked up the product, and we had them sift through everything 2 times. So we're very, very vigilant on.
And our team's incredible.
100%. Yeah.
So now when you're manufacturing the product and you have this brand new product, there's nothing maybe out there exactly like it. What do you do for pricing? How do you figure out your price?
I'm a big believer on working backwards. I always have been. I mean, before we even started the company, I forced her to come to many different Whole Foods with me. We actually started in Ottawa, then we drove to a few in the U.S. We first started with finding out where we wanted to live in the grocery store, doing a price analysis of what the prices were, and then we kind of worked ourselves backwards into making sure that our pricing model met what that price, the category that you're in the grocery store dictates the price. Put it this way. If you're in one section versus another section, it can change the whole game. So we backed out into the price. That's how we did it.
And where are you located? Where's your product today?
It's the new category it's the fastest growing category in both the US and Canada. It's natural refrigerated, meaning the refrigerated space is growing. It's growing 40% year over year for the grocers, and they're putting a ton of product that wasn't typically found in a fridge in there.
Is it tough to get into the stores?
No, I would say we haven't had much trouble to date. I think we had a great launch. I think launching in Montreal was the best thing that could have ever happened.
But I think we did the show. If you're launching a Me Too product, what I classify as a Me Too product, if you're just copying the guy next to you, you're going to have a very
not
hard
quite
time.
the hashtag Me Too. Though.
Yeah. No, not that. It's funny.
Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah, if you're exactly, let's be clear on that. If
Fudge,
if you're just going to the grocery store and kind of making an iteration of something that already exists, you're going to have a very difficult time. Grocery stores are really looking for innovative products, and we believe we came to the market with something that was truthfully not there before, and the buyers have rewarded us with that innovation.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important that when you launch something, to launch it to your reach, right? Your friends, your family, and see, like, that's how we really started is through social media, your own backyard, and so it was really nice.
Tell me about the product design. Just looking at the package, you go the minimalist route, but the one thing that stands out is the word real. Is that something that you always like to emphasize in your marketing, that it's real stuff?
Take it.
No, yeah. Well, real. So exactly, that is something that we really.
So it started off that we just thought that the chocolate.
Can you tell they're married?
Yeah, it started off that the chocolate was like we wanted to focus on us having real chocolate, but my Jake the Rover brought up. We've actually integrated into everything that we do in marketing. Like if you watch our social, it is real. I mean, we hide nothing. You see the good, the bad, the ugly. Mm-hmm. So it's been a staple in our branding.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little about the dollar side of it. Not actually the dollars themselves, but when you're getting this off the ground, unless it's a lot of your own money or love money, there's got to be some financing. There's got to be people that are putting money in. When you're sitting and because I presume there's some outside funds that are in here.
Yep. When
you're pitching, who are you pitching to, and does your pitch change depending who's in front of you?
1,000%. So like, for starters, you need to start the raising process 6 months before you need that money. I can't tell you how critical that piece is because a lot of people don't buffer that in. 6 months minimum. And if you're speaking to a bank, the bank is going to look at your business entirely different than maybe a friends and family investor will look at it versus a venture capitalist, the way they'll look at it versus a private equity group. And so what we did is we really tailored the narrative to be able to explain what we were trying to do from the point of view of the person that was sitting in front of us.
Are there major differences? Can you pick out maybe one or two
so like
between
banks
them?
really are focused on what your cash flow is going to be. So what's the revenue going to look like? What are your projections? And does that back out into, let's say, the lending? And what type of assets do you have on? And they're very, let's call it Excel oriented. Whereas a venture capitalist is buying into a narrative more so. And so your pitch is really focused on how could you convince the person at the opposite side of the table that this is a company that's going to be a breakout company. And that takes a lot more storytelling.
No question. And none of this is possible, of course, without, it's not just two of you. It's not just two of you or three of you with Jake. There is a team around you. How many people are you now?
22
people.
So you didn't go from 0 to 22 at the drop of a hat. You did ramp up. Was it difficult to find people?
No, not at the beginning. I mean, when we first started, the most important thing was to have people to come help us make the product. And so we found one person who then had a friend, and that person had a friend. So that was really nice. I think where it's starting to be hard to find people is now when you're looking for very specific roles. I think that the whole process to hiring is long and tedious.
No question. And of course, then there's a culture because it's
Yes.
one thing to have 5 people around the table. It's another thing to have 25 people around the table.
Oh.
You're going from informal to formal.
Yeah.
Have you had to set in policies? How is that? You're scratching your head, Nick, or
Yeah.
you're breathing.
'Cause
What's
that's
been that
the-
challenge?
I think that's been our biggest challenge is how do you grow from... there's actually a great book on this called Blitzscaling that talks about each stage of the company. And the first stage is family, and then I think it goes into tribe. We're in the transition of a family. Really what they're trying to say is everything is super informal, personal. The lines are crossed like crazy where everyone's really like family, to setting in boundaries, expectations, really result driven, and humans hate change. Let's just be honest with that. And so that transition of going from family to more formal has been extremely difficult, but it's something that's necessary. And Les has done an incredible job in leading because I'm not that great at that part.
So Lezlie, Nick, we'll have your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur in a few minutes. And coming up next, Micheline Mayette, HR specialist on how to compensate employees if you're in a small business. So those details coming up.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL Montreal's Josh Miller with you. And this evening, we're chatting with Lezlie Karls and Nick Saltarelli of snack bar company MidDay Squares. Their one piece of advice for today's Entrepreneur is on the way. But first, we welcome back Micheline Mayette from on the HR perspective from FL. And Micheline is here to discuss compensation for employees of small businesses. Welcome back, Michelle.
Hi, Dad.
So it is tricky, Josh, especially when it's a tight labor market. You have to sort of pay attention to these things very closely. What are your thoughts on this? And is it getting tougher out there to compensate small business employees?
It's not so much that it's difficult to compensate, but it's navigating that path. It's how much should we be paying them? Should it be in relation to the profits? What role are they occupying? Will they talk to each other and share their salaries with each other? Oh my gosh, that's the dreadful one. I can go on, but Micheline's here. You're not here to listen beyond that. It's Micheline that's here. So Micheline, when we're talking about compensation of employees in small businesses, what are the first 800 things that come to mind?
Well, often when businesses start, they kind of pay what they can to a certain extent. So they don't always have budgets for salary reviews and that type of thing. So I think, at the beginning, it's something they pay what they can. When people ask for increases, they'll consider it and kind of give them as they see fit and as they can afford to do. And sometimes what happens is that practice can kind of stay for longer than it needs to. So as the company gets a bit bigger and starts to add structure, oddly enough, even though people, do work for a paycheck most of the time, sometimes it's one of the last things actually that small, medium-sized businesses will think of adding structure to.
I guess I'll turn quickly to Nick and Lezlie. How much thought do you put into your salary levels, or you're just so busy building that it goes a little bit by the wayside, or it just goes by gut?
I would say a little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both, yeah.
But to answer your question, you're so busy building that you're not putting as much attention as you should. We're just trying to go with what the market conditions are. And to be honest, I don't even think the market's right all the time.
So, Micheline, I mean, in that aspect, just the building on Nick, you go by the market, but is that truly right? Or, and then you might risk, if you're below market, they'll go across the street somewhere. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you're not at market, you have to see what else you're offering to people that are going to make them want to stay with you. I think the most important thing is to actually look internally to make sure that things make sense. Because, to your point before, people do share their salaries. And actually, they say that millennials share their salaries more than anybody has ever done before. So it could be very natural almost to share how much you're earning with somebody else. So you want to make sure that internally it makes sense and you can kind of justify, even if it's not, scientific like a large company would be, but that, if you were to write everybody's salary up on the wall, that you'd be able to, explain the general thought process behind it.
Can you have a policy in place that restricts them from talking about their salaries?
For me, that's more a question of like a personal choice. I think it's really hard to impose that. So I always like to assume people do share.
What about turnaround? That's such a problem for the millennial generation and younger. How do you develop a policy that counters that phenomenon?
Turnover.
Turnover?
Did I say turnaround?
Turnover.
Yeah.
Turnover,
Yeah,
yeah, sorry,
turnover. Yeah. Well, turnover, I mean, that's based on so many different factors that can impact turnover. Compensation can be one of them. So, I mean, if people feel that they're not being paid fairly, and again, there's nothing that they could see to compensate for that. The fact is there's a million jobs out there. So, they can probably make more going elsewhere. But I can say that about almost any employee. So I always say anybody can get, a good 10 to 20% more by going somewhere else. So what are you going to do retention wise that's going to keep them there? Assuming that you're paying, relatively well within the market. A lot of it is the work climate, so that they feel that they're part of something, that they're part of a purpose. I'd say especially with the younger generation, something that's very important.
No, and generations play a difference. Nick?
I think millennials get a bad rap for this. Actually, I think
I'm sorry, what generation are you?
I'm a millennial.
Just checking.
Yeah, no, but I actually do want to say I really believe, even some we're on the opposite end of that stick, right? We're an employer hiring employees, and our employees are die hard. I just think that it's a competitive landscape out there, and you really have to offer something more than just a paycheck to keep people engaged in this day and age. And I think that educational piece is what's getting blamed on millennials. It's like, oh, we're not willing to put that effort into making it really engaging, and so millennials are just bored and want to switch jobs.
I actually have to say that I don't find it's bad that millennials actually prefer more transparency. They're kind of known for that, but I actually think transparency is good. So I find it actually forces people to think a little bit more sometimes about what they're doing, to be able to explain it to people. So actually, personally, I don't actually think it's a bad thing.
No, I agree. And listen, if the employers are looking for the next best idea and help to grow their company, they have to share some information. So it definitely works out better.
Yeah.
Anything else on the compensation side?
I'd say also something I'm seeing that's very popular is profit sharing, because a lot of companies sometimes are maybe not profitable at the beginning and they want to get to that point. It can create a sense of ownership too within the employees. Again, that requires transparency also from the employers to a certain extent. But that's something I see, especially younger entrepreneurs, putting in place more and more in their organizations. And
the other thing I've noticed in certainly several clients is there's tenure, the number of years of service, and what you bring to the table. And just because somebody's been there for 10 years versus somebody that's been there 3 years doesn't mean that they bring, the 10 years bringing more to the table than the 3 year. So 100%. It's really something to evaluate what that person's doing.
Yeah, for sure, that the old mindsets of, you get a certain salary because you've been there for a certain number of years is definitely something that's going by the wayside today.
I know. Thanks very much, Micheline, and for your input, Nick and Lezlie. It's definitely, it's a touchy topic that for some entrepreneurs, there's no question.
I think we could sit here for hours talking about it.
We totally could. But as we reach the last moments of our shows we do each week, we'll turn to Nick and Lezlie and ask you each, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur? Lezlie, ladies first.
Thank you. My one piece of advice is don't be scared to go out there and do what you want to do. Don't be scared to fail. It's okay to fail. I've failed many times. And it's okay to pivot. Just go out there and try to create something for you. And if you create something for you, there's a good chance that can succeed.
Nick?
I've been on the opposite side of what I'm about to say, so I can tell you, basically, forge your own path. So many of us are trying to copy paths of success that have happened. I've been there, done that, and every time I've tried that route, it hasn't worked. And every time I've really forged my own path, our own path, I believe what we're doing with MidDay Squares, success really it follows, because you're going down an uncharted territory. So really stick to your gut. Don't try to copy, and really forge your own path.
Excellent. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you for
Dan,
having
the quick
us.
takeaways: know your audience, know if you're going to be in front of somebody, know how you want to talk to them. And I love that guerrilla marketing. If you're developing a product, you believe in it, get it out there. Let the product speak for itself.
All right, Lezlie Karls and Nick Saltarelli of MidDay Squares. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks to Micheline Mayette as well with your HR tips. We'll see you soon, Micheline. And back next Monday night at 7 p.m., Josh.
Dental care.
Dentists, yes, should be fun. Today's Entrepreneur. Don't forget today'sentrepreneur.org with over a decade worth of inspiring entrepreneur profiles, and we'll see you back here next week. Good night.